On silent. No, it is on silent.
Are you ready? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kumbuzon Chaveni, the Minister in the Presidency and spokesperson of Cabinet. I'm here with the Minister of Finance and also with the Director General of the National Treasury. We've convened this media briefing because...
Hi, can we get volume to the side, please?
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kumbuzon Chaveni, the Minister in the Presidency and spokesperson of Cabinet. We've convened this media briefing because, as Cabinet, we have not finalized the budget, and therefore we could not proceed to the House for the Minister of Finance to table the budget. We had a slight delay because the elevators were not working for the Minister to come down. So that's why the reason for the slight delay. And I'll then hand over to the Minister of Finance, Minister Enoch Godongwane Madiba, to read out the statement, and then we'll take the questions.
Okay, I'm not used to reading statements this time, so that I should not go out of the text. I'm going to read the statement. The annual budget is tabled by the Minister of Finance, but it requires the deliberations of the Cabinet before it is tabled in the National Assembly. Cabinet considered that although the tabling of the 2025 budget was scheduled for release at 2 p.m. on the 19th of February, a postponement is needed to allow for further deliberations to take place on the budget. Cabinet is united in the view that the budget must strike a balance between the interests of the public, economic growth, and fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, budget is produced and presented before the National Assembly according to rules outlined in the Public Finance Management Act. Section 27 of the Public Finance Management Act requires that the annual budget be tabled prior to the start of the financial year or, in exceptional circumstances, on a date as soon as possible after the start of the financial year, as the Minister of Finance may determine. Therefore, further discussion in Cabinet will take place in preparation for a new or amended budget to be tabled on the 12th of March 2025. That's your next date for the new budget.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now take the questions from the floor. I'm going to see the number of hands, and then we determine whether we're doing 1 or 2 rounds. And then in terms of procedure, you'll have to indicate your name, the media house where you come from, and then you filled your question. Let me start here, and then go. The 2 hands up there. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 hands. Okay. Start, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Tepi Lefele with Bloomberg News. Minister, at what point did it become apparent during your consultation that there was not consensus on this budget? And if there is not consensus again by the 12th of March, what then becomes the next steps? Thank you.
Next hand. Mike.
Edward West, Business Report. I just wanted to know, is it normal to hold a cabinet meeting just before the budget every year, or couldn't it have been held a bit earlier?
The next hand.
Lisa Moody from Daily Maverick. Sorry, Minister, can you confirm whether the 2% that hike was the only point of contention, or were there other points as well?
Yes, sir.
SABC News. So, what kind of impact will this have in terms of how you engage with the international investors? investors and bondholders. And obviously, it's something that we were anticipating that it will happen today.
There's a lady there.
Ilula Mamaja, SABC. Minister, earlier on when you were here, you indicated that there's no consensus from the cabinet. It has not been approved by the cabinet. Why did you have to take such a risk?
And one man look okay.
No. Let me protect you and you ask the question. The minister is going to only deal with the responses after you've asked.
Why, Minister, did you have to take such a risk considering the expenses involved in this process? Is that not a fruitless expenditure considering the limited resources that Treasury has?
Ma'am, before you go, what risk in relation to what?
In relation to the postponement of the budget. The risk of not, when he was here earlier on, he said the budget has not been approved by cabinet. So I'm asking, why did he have to take such a risk of coming and presenting a budget that has not been approved by cabinet, as per his words? He said in the past it used to be approved before he presents. Thanks.
Thanks.
No, you didn't have your hand up. I didn't see your hand.
From ANC. The DA has already released a statement suggesting that it couldn't agree with the ANC when it comes to the 2% VAT increase. Did the DA force your hand to postpone the budget, Minister? And that's the case. Is then the GNU safe? Is the country safe in the hands of the GNU?
The minister will respond, and then I'll clarify the ones that he doesn't respond to.
The DA one. At what point? Difficult question, because you never anticipate this stuff. It relates to the second question, for instance, somebody, is it normal? The answer is yes, because some of the information is market sensitive. Because of that nature, we normally give an indication. For instance, 2 weeks ago, we went to Cabinet and gave an indication. Precisely because of the market sensitivity of some of the issues, we didn't put some of these issues on the table. And then we normally put it early in the morning. The unfortunate thing today, that's why we didn't start early, is because the president was not around, so we started late. So it's normal to do that. Was the 2% the normal contention?
The only.
Huh?
Was the 2% the only contention?
Yeah, contentious issue. You can't have the 2% alone without talking about what's going to replace it, and that does not become contentious. What I'm trying to say, what we are grappling with, is not necessarily the 2% per se. What we are grappling with, given the challenges and priorities that we are facing, how do we fund them? Really, that's the debate. Do we borrow more? What are the implications of that? Do we continue cutting expenditure? What are the implications of that? Do we raise tax? What are the implications of that? There's general agreement that in the current environment, we need to find a way of funding our priorities. The debate is what is the best way of doing it. And give the bonds to Duncan and give the minister the remaining one. Bond.
Thanks, Minister.
We don't talk to board holders, you guys talk to them.
Yes. Thank you, Minister. So typically what would have happened today, what typically would have happened is that we would have had a global investor call after the budget with our domestic and foreign investors. And then there would have been some engagement over the next few days, mainly with the domestic investors, followed by a foreign roadshow. Of course, if the budget has been postponed to the 12th of March, all of those engagements will now shift until after and on the 12th of March, as per our normal practice. We will, of course, consider releasing a statement more broadly after this, but some of the key areas of communication that would have already gone out to some of our bondholders around, for example, what would happen to auction levels, that communication has already gone out, and that communication is important to go out. So there are some areas of communication that have already happened, and it's important that that goes out. In terms of the broader fiscal framework, there will have to be a re-engagement on the 12th of March when the new fiscal framework is tabled.
On the question of the DA having released a statement claiming that they forced the ANC hand, I think all of you followed Minister Mackenzie when he was replying in Parliament. And in his reply, I think he succinctly clarified it was neither a DA issue, an ANC issue, a PA issue, or a DA versus ANC, or a PA versus ANC, or IFP versus ANC. It was a cabinet decision. And let me clarify, in cabinet we have a sitting order. So the older ministers sit first. So it means when you are raising hands, it will be the ANC ministers who will raise their hands and speak first. And the focus of the discussion is not about party politics. It's about what is the balance that we need to achieve between managing our fiscal framework, managing our ability to protect the interest of South Africans in general and the poor at outmost. How do we deal with the inequality that confronts all of us? So it's never a DA ANC issue. It's a collective cabinet decision. And the minister, you raised the question of why did the minister take a risk? And he has explained, he didn't take a risk. Ordinarily we do it that way, to manage the market sensitivity. So it's not something new. Before he goes to the MTDPS, he's going to come on that morning and give us the issues. But there are continuous consultations that happen. But bottom line, at the end of the day, Treasury must balance the books, must make sure there's money that's available, and in balancing the books, they'll then have to say, in terms of what Cabinet has proposed in the previous engagement, what does the reality say? And then the minister has covered what the issues to say. How do you then plug the gap that we have in the fiscals? Do we borrow more? Do we do, what are the other things that we do? So there are two more hands that I've seen, which will be my last round. Can I have all hands up? I'm going to start with you. And then you follow. Yeah, there's no follow-ups. Can I have the hands that are up? Let's have the hands up, don't threaten to raise the hand. Raise the hand, please. You're starting, she follows, you follow, and then there's the lady right at the back, you are number 4, and the lady at the front, number 5, number 6. Ma'am with the camera, please sit down so that I can see everybody. Number 7, number 8, and number 9. That's the last round of hands. Hello?
Please note we also have Pretoria.
How many people in Pretoria?
Three people in Pretoria.
So let's do this. We've got 7 hands here. You are going to guide me on the 3 in Pretoria. So we'll take the first 5 here, respond to them, and then the last 3, is it 2 here, and then we'll go to Pretoria for the last 3, and then we'll finish. So it's 3 rounds of questions. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Mamalo Ngenze here from PWN. Just quickly follow up on your earlier comments at the press conference this morning about having further discussions with the DA, with the Deputy Minister Sullivan, on any issues that may arise in the budget. When do you expect those discussions to begin? Because I imagine with this postponement, it just made matters a bit more urgent. And is it perhaps not a good idea maybe for a more comprehensive agreement between parties on things like the budget, as opposed to a clearinghouse mechanism in the GNU? Is it not maybe time for a coalition or some solid agreement on how to deal with this matter? Because this is just the first budget speech of the GNU. Thank you.
Answer that question.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Lily from Mbele. So you say that it is not necessarily the VAT issue, but rather a funding mechanism of how to fund. Is there any other issue except how to fund that there is no consensus on? And then, DG, if you could please, can you please just take us through the process, because we've never gone through this in the country. So just the process of when you start talking about the budget with the departments, with everyone, how exactly does it unfold? Because I'd like to believe that most of the information would be information that members would have been aware of, or at least departments, as it were. And how do we, going forward, handle the information in the review documents that we've been dealing with in money? Because I think also I would like to just say that we do think as the media that it is in the interest of the public to allow us to elaborate as much as we can, to also avoid speculation on some of the issues, because we have been handling these documents since early this morning.
The hand here.
Minister Kelly Joffe, Business Day. Forgive me if I'm asking something that has already been asked. Following up on the last question, can I ask you specifically, was there consensus on the large quantity of spending increase that you penciled into the budget over the medium term? Was there any dispute over that or over any of the details? And just secondly, our procedural question, what do we do now with these documents? I mean, I'm assuming that since a large number of economists and a large number of journalists have read every word, the only thing you can really do is just publish them as a draft to avoid inside information or inside training. But maybe are we free to go ahead and write about them as a draft, which is going to be amended on the 12th March? If you can guide us on what to do now, unless you can
bring them back.
And number 4.
Some came from SABC Africa. Minister, seeing that there was no consensus or agreement in your multi-party coalition government interface with a number of documents that you present today, I have to ask, to what extent was this genuinely a GNU coalition budget, and what's your solution then to get your house in order?
Number 5.
Komani Gumbi from Reuters. Ministers, coalition governments generally disagree on most things except the budget. What went wrong this time? And to follow on from my colleague's take, at what point in the process did you realize that things were breaking?
Thank you. No, we'll take the last 3 hands, the last 2 hands, the last 3 hands with the ones in Pretoria, so that we can then answer. Then it becomes round of 5 questions each. It works nicely. I'm going to answer the first one and the last question. Again, you are making an assumption that the differences were from one party or the other. That is completely wrong. The differences were across parties, including ministers who you would call ANC ministers, but we are all ministers of cabinet. So it's not a one-party issue. And there is no need for the minister to engage with the SERPEN outside of what the department does. Part of why we requested a delay as cabinet is that we want to meet as cabinet and have a substantive discussion on the budget. So remove the notion, party politics, people who claim certain things. If we want to be naughty like other people are, we can mention names of say who deferred, who supported, who deferred, and you'll be shocked. So let's not go there. It's the cabinet ministers who did not approve the budget as it was being tabled and said they needed more time to engage with the issues of how do we, what the minister normally call the trade-offs. And we said because the time, and the minister has explained, the cabinet, special cabinet only started later. But the time to go to Parliament was then approaching. We then requested the Deputy President as the leader of government business to then request the Speaker to request Parliament to give us the time to agree on the budget. And it means that between now and the 12th, we are going to go back as Cabinet and have an engagement on Cabinet. In actual fact, yourselves as the media, when we have mahutas and sometimes photo sessions, you come in and see how we sit in Cabinet. You see who the people who sit closest to the chairing, what we call the presidium. So let's not go there to say, is this party vis-a-vis this party? It's not. We are all ministers of the government. We share a common concern about the impact of the budget in terms of achieving our priorities, protecting the poor. And the Treasury has the responsibility to fund the priorities. And they find mechanism, and they say, Minister was very clear, and he has been clear 2 weeks ago, he has been clear all the time the consultations have come through, to say you need to make the choices. It's a give and take. You can't have your cake and then eat it. You want to have it, you stop eating it. But if you eat it, you won't have it. So those are the choices that Cabinet, given the reality of what happened, because Treasury has the responsibility to fund the budget, Cabinet will then have to go back and say, we didn't want to make this choice. But now we think that choice that was put on the table, or this other one that's also in the table, is too difficult for us to comprehend given the situation in our country, and therefore we are willing to make this choice. That's the balancing act that we all need to do as Cabinet. And that is a decision of Cabinet. And DG, maybe you must explain the process they want or you to explain in terms of how you get to compile the budget documents.
Starting from June.
Yeah. Thank you, Minister. So I'll try not to repeat every single step, but just give a broad overview. The process starts in the first few months of the new fiscal year when we release the medium-term expenditure framework guidelines. Those guidelines go out to all departments, and based on those guidelines, departments then make submissions to the National Treasury, which gets processed through a technical process which was previously called the MTEC, the Medium-Term Expenditure Committee. It's now called the Technical Committee on the Budget. And that process runs over the course of a few months. It then culminates in presentations to various fora where the ministers and other colleagues are involved, the Budget Council, the Budget Forum, eventually the Ministers' Committee on the Budget, and then it goes to Cabinet. And then at that stage, it then finds expression in the medium-term budget policy statement. The medium-term budget policy statement sets out, in effect, the budget priorities and the budget for the next 3 years. The budget then, which follows in February, then articulates the specific changes for that upcoming year as well as the medium term. The difference between the MTBPS and the budget is that the budget is the time where we pronounce on tax changes. So to the extent that there are tax changes and to the extent that there are additional revenue that finds expression in the fiscal framework, that additional revenue then allows often for expenditure changes. And those final set of revenue, expenditure and debt recommendations then form the basis of the budget that is tabled in February. And I think the Minister in Chaveni covered the other issues around the process then that happens in the lead up to Cabinet. There was one other question, Minister, on the documents as well. Look, I mean, we are in uncharted territory, as you can imagine. We were talking to the Governor earlier, and he said, well, in fact, the embargo has not been lifted because the embargo only gets lifted once the Minister starts speaking. But of course, we cannot pretend that none of the journalists and economists who are in the lockup have not fully internalized the documents. And so I think one of the things that we will have to reflect on is actually what all of that means. And we will have to do that, I would imagine, fairly quickly.
But for now, the documents come back.
Can I take the last one? How to fund? No, there's one thing that's how to fund. Was the only difference. Say there's was the difference only how to fund. Let me put it this way. If you ask me as a Minister of Finance, I like the exercise. All right? What it does, it forces some of the things we have not been doing to discuss what Minister Mchabena has been calling for, trade-offs. In that sense, Cabinet itself is becoming engaging in the discussion of the trade-offs. It's not making a technical issues for Dr. Peters. And then when the budget is being implemented, somebody says, no, it's Treasury who cut my budget. All right? It's not, whereas a budget is a statement of Cabinet. And so what is happening, in my view, is when Cabinet become involved in the detailed discussions is useful for us in that sense. I don't think when you say Kopano, they fight over everything. Coalition governments, including the allocation of resources and priorities. Where it becomes easy is a country like Germany, where your scope is limited because you've got legalized fiscal rules. In that sense, the scope for battles over budget is limited. What is this thing? Oh, there was that lady who says, is it genuine? No, this. Okay. Well, have we had some questions there?
No. So there are three more hands here, and then we'll take the 3 hands in Pretoria, and then we'll go to the online questions.
Kara, this is Kara.
Thanks, Minister. It's Carol Fenton. Minister, did I hear you correctly when you said that because of the market sensitivity, you did not table all the changes that were in the budget at the initial meeting? I guess that was the meeting on the 5th of February when the budget was discussed. Are you saying that the tax proposals, the proposals on tax specifically, were not raised at that meeting and that they were then revealed later? And if you could just clarify that. Then secondly, are you prepared to have a wholesale review of spending, a comprehensive spending review and a zero-based budget which examines the wasteful spending on all sorts of things in government that continues to be refunded every single year? Thanks.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Dogozo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. We spent some time with the various unions in civil society who handed over the memorandum to the National Treasury this afternoon. They were alluding to wanting to take to nationwide strike on the 6th of October, and then saying they should move that closer due to that 2% VAT increase. Now that the budget has been moved to the 12th of March, is there any time to be able to engage with unions and civil society who said they've tabled various suggestions that National Treasury should consider for the budget? Thank you.
Hi, Minister. It's Fifi from SABC Africa. So coming into the budget, there was a media story just reporting the SARS Commissioner, sir, saying that he was also opposed to tax increases and saying that perhaps a better way to fill the gap, as it were, was to capacitate SARS a little bit more. The number that was being reported was around 800 million rand or so in taxes there that have not been collected, that the Commissioner said could be collected if they have the capacity. Can I just ask if perhaps this was discussed at all and whether this will be considered? And also, so this time, I think next week, we are all going to be meeting again It's one of the major launches for the G20 meetings, and you've also got businesses from some of the largest economies in the world that are going to be here. I'm not too sure if we should be feeling a little bit embarrassed potentially about this budget deadlock, but nonetheless, how do you think this deadlock on the budget right now could influence some of the conversations you may have with your global counterparts next week? Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to Pretoria for the three heads.
Afternoon, Minister. My name is Tanvi. Just a couple of questions for you. I don't know if you touched on.
Can you come closer to the mic?
Hi, Tanvi. Can you please speak louder? Can you bring the mic closer to you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you'll have to be slow.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, just can the Minister expand on which market-sensitive issues were inserted into the budget review today? We understand that it was the VAT increase and perhaps also negotiations on the public wage bill. And then when do consultations begin in terms of tweaking the budget, the entire budget today or next week? When do they begin? And then what happens should an agreement not be reached by April the 1st or March 12th, which is the proposed new date of the budget? Is there a deadlock mechanism in place? Thanks.
The second one.
Good afternoon, Minister. Helmer Preuss from Business Report. At a previous media briefing, I asked you, why don't we go back to the third Wednesday of March? And at that time, you said that would create a problem for the provinces. Now we've got the second Wednesday in March. Can we make that permanent? Because on the first Tuesday of March, that is when GDP data is released. And related to that, can we have Stats SA use the normal procedure of saying that GDP growth, non-farm and including others? Because in the third quarter, the year-on-year change for total GDP was only 0.3%, but if you exclude agriculture, it was 1.1%, and that's a perceptual change. Thank you.
That's it for Pretoria, Minister. The third one was covered.
Thank you. Minister, over to you. And the
Yeah, I think I'll give DG the last question there. I don't know this thing about third quarters, third Wednesdays, and so on. Carol, the comprehensive review is going to take place, but that comprehensive review is not going to take place between now and the 12th of March. So if one has got an expectation that we'll have a comprehensive review between now and the 12th of March and hope to get money, it won't take place. I'm quite keen to know, people tell me about zero-based budgeting. I want to know a country which does it, so that I should go and learn experiences. I've seen it in textbooks, but I've not seen any country that does it. It would be an interesting experience to do it. I don't know whether DG knows any country that does zero-based budgeting. I know people talk about it. No doubt about it. This notion that you are going to engage the whole of society when you craft a budget doesn't work. There's this lady who says, are we going to consult everybody? It doesn't mean we don't listen to anybody proposal that are submitted, but it doesn't mean we're going to organize rallies across the country for civil society and everybody. We listen to those proposals that have been said. People march to my office. I'm used to it. Even every budget, this is my fourth one. I don't remember a single one when Vavi was not outside. So I'm used to it. This thing, Commissioner, I ask you people to go and ask him. Go and ask him. Because when I saw this thing in the business day, I called him. And Commissioner said, no, I said it some 3 weeks ago, but not in the same context. I'm putting context in an Alan Gray meeting. 3 weeks ago, in an Alan Gray meeting, it's been reproduced in the business day incorrectly, according to him. That's what the Commissioner says. What I do know, there are different roles between the two of us. His role is tax administration. My role is tax policy. And it's quite important both of us will keep to those 2 lanes in doing that. I don't think this thing is likely to do anything on G20. These people that are going to be here, they've got their own problems. One of my colleagues told me he's going to land here on the 23rd, and his country will be voting, probably his party is going to lose while he's here. If you say there's no Minister of Finance who doesn't have a problem on earth, I'm mistaken. My colleague, Christina from Canada, has just thrown the towel and resigned from Canada. So I remember I was sitting with Kwasi from the UK when we lasted 38 days. He was fired when I was sitting with him in Washington. So Minister of Finance is not a thankful job. So those people who are coming there, they've got, I can tell you, if you were to ask them, they'll tell you there are problems. The only one who's not going to have a problem who's coming next week, because she's also the president at the moment. She's Minister of Finance and President, is Switzerland. We don't have called something deadlock breaking. We don't negotiate the budget. People are going to say whatever they say. And whatever they say, we'll listen. I'm going to say whatever they say. In the finances, there's a president in this country. We must make those policy choices. We can't have deadlock breaking machine. The president must make a choice, a decision once we're making all of this noise and say what is best for the country. We don't have that. TG, you're going to talk what is market sensitive and your third week. Third week, why not? I agree with that gentleman. It gives me more time. Then not coming from holiday, I'm stuck in debating a budget.
Yeah, unfortunately, you don't have to make that decision today, Minister.
Yeah, I know.
Look, just to respond to some of those questions, there are various legislative provisions that govern aspects of the process, which are important both for Almo's question and for one of the questions that was asked earlier. For example, provinces must table their annual budgets within 2 weeks of the national budget being tabled. That's in the PFMA, and that also influences the timing of the national budget. Section 27. Section 29 talks about what happens by the end of the financial year, by the end of the 31st of March, if there is no budget. And in that case, there's a process by which departments can spend up to a certain limit, 45% in the first 4 months of the previous year's appropriation, and then other provisions kick in thereafter. Of course, as the ministers indicated, we are not planning for that. We are planning for a budget that is going to be tabled on the 12th of March, that follows the processes. So first there will be a technical process which the team will go back to and do, and then there will be the followed by the cabinet process, and then tabled in Parliament on the 12th of March. Yeah, and I think you covered the issue, Minister, on the other market-sensitive issues. And that's it.
Then the online questions. Is it Najipa who's reading them out?
Good afternoon,
7th of March.
and the media members, media houses that are represented this afternoon. Minister, we've got 3 questions here. The first question was asked by Sophie Gwena from SABC. She asked, was the option of rolling back 1% corporate tax that was introduced in 2021 was considered? Second question from Gosinati Power FM. The RAN has reacted negatively on the markets regarding the postponement. Is Treasury worried that this may send a negative message to the G20 bloc, or will it end justify the means? And the last question is from Quinini from Sunday World. She asked, the Freedom Front Plus says they were only informed about the 2% increase this morning. Why would you only reveal such information to GNU partners for the last minute? Thank you.
Thank you, Nandipam. Over to you, Minister Ndiji.
DG is going to answer this. What do they talk about? The rand and everything. Rolling back the company tax, I think everybody thinks that the only people who, once you have got a crisis, must take companies. Two things. What it does, mistake, it suggests that companies are not, a couple of points, companies are not going to respond to that. I can tell you now, I was talking to somebody who's investing in the UK, he's moving a company headquarters from UK because of the new taxes to Zurich. Now, I'm just giving you that it doesn't mean they're not going to react. Secondly, when you tax companies, you're taxing profitability. Why are we not getting money now? Let me just give you an indication. In 2023, we were thinking that we were rolling out of the commodity prices. All of a sudden, boom! By July, we recorded a 32 billion rand revenue loss from the mining industry. Now, irrespective of whether you tax them, if there's no profitability, there's no profitability in the industry. Even the commissioners, I know people, we're talking about the commissioner here, will tell you the problem, we're not getting money from industry on the existing tax, let alone a new tax, because companies are not making profits. So that's one set of issues. If you compare, which we do, our level of taxation of company tax compared to our peers, we're far above the OECD average. I don't think whether that slide we have in the budget review. We're far above OECD average. What does that mean? What that means, we're uncompetitive as an investment destination in an environment when we have high unemployment. So it's quite easy to make these things. 2 weeks ago, we went to Cabinet. Among other things, proposals, was this tax proposal, we didn't say, we did indicate, point a direction towards a specific tax. Everybody was in that meeting. That's why one of them leaked it to the Sunday Times. Right? The one of them leaked it to the Sunday Times, a cabinet minister, leaked it to the Sunday Times. He was not sure about the percent. That's why I used 1%. He knew that that's the direction we're taking. For somebody saying they were not aware, it's disingenuous. It's disingenuous because that's where the leaks about the VAT came from. Because I tabled it in Cabinet. What was interesting is that some of the people who leaked were Cabinet colleagues. One of them who was leaking to the Cabinet, to the journalists, even went to the extent of telling the journalists what kind of questions that were asked me in Cabinet. So they come here and tell you in the media and say, no, the first time they hear about this. No, we presented in Cabinet, but we also said this is direction we're likely to take. And everybody was jittery, and we didn't put the amount then. because we thought it's too far. You can imagine if we did then 2 weeks ago, where would we be in terms of leaking? So, so the Freedom Fund Plus is not telling the truth. Not telling the truth. It's like the ones that are saying, I mean, like the DA, they like, and those ones have got an identity crisis. They always want to be given attention and so on. Even things they did not do, they claim is theirs. So that's the stuff I know. DG, you can answer about bonds and markets.
Thank you, Minister. Very briefly on, because I think the question was, are we concerned about the RAND movements, in particular in relation to the G20? And the answer is no. What we are concerned about are sustained weaknesses in the currency because of what that means for the economic indicators that are important to us from a fiscal framework perspective. So, for example, a sustained weakness in the currency means that our dollar-denominated debt becomes more expensive, and that shows up in our gross borrowing requirement. A sustained depreciation in the currency means that inflation is likely to be higher because of imported inflation, and that has a implication for the parts of our budget that are indexed to inflation. So we, of course, will be watching the implications of today's postponement on both the currency and the bond markets. And to the extent that there are changes that we need to factor in for the next budget that we are going to table to Cabinet, we will do that. And whatever budget is tabled will then take account of whatever the latest forecasts are, both on the currency but also on the bond markets. As I said this morning, the RAND, as of last week, on a 12-month basis, was the best performing EM currency relative to the dollar, and we'll have to see over the next few weeks how that changes, if at all, and what that means for the budget we'll table on the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG. Thank you, members of the media. This media briefing is adjourned.